All right, I want to talk to you about one of my favorite books ever. It's called The Gap and the Gain, and it's written by Sullivan and Hardy are the guys' names. So this book is really good if you're someone like me who has a tendency to be a little bit pessimistic or salty, however you want to call it. So, and I've got a good real life example. But the concept of this book, not to ruin it for you, it's definitely worth the read, is that entrepreneurs, high achievers have this tendency to always be looking at the horizon, looking for where they're not. They're never, ever, ever satisfied, which could be a good thing because it pushes you. You're constantly striving for better, right? But we've got to be happy in life. And particularly if you're a shop owner, there's always some way you can be better. So you have to find this balance of looking towards the future, but also turning around and looking back and appreciating how far you've come. Otherwise, you're going to be miserable, right? This is the gap and the gain. The gain is looking backwards and like, hey, this is where I've come from. The gap is the distance between you and the horizon, which never goes away. So that's the concept of the book. Please read it. It's much better than that. But here's a real life example. So recently, Shop Marketing Pros was talked about in a case study that was done by Ratchet and Wrench magazine. It was really cool. I don't think I've ever seen a case study about us before, so it's neat to see this. And they interviewed a bunch of shop owners all over the country, asking key questions like, how do they rank on quality of work and all this kind of stuff. And the end of the survey was basically, when I looked at this thing, I was depressed. And I told the leadership, I told Ken and Brian, I was like, oh, this is depressing. Basically, no one knows who we are. Only about 10 to 15% of people were able to respond to that because the others didn't know who we were. And I'm focused on the gap. I'm like, oh man, no one knows us or whatever. And then Brian, being the CEO that he is, comes in and says, well, you know what? The 10% of people who did know who we are had amazing things to say about us. Super high quality, high integrity, invested in the industry, on and on about the stuff that, we really strived to achieve, our values and all that kind of stuff. So it's a classic example of gap thinking where I was focused on, well, where's the other 90%? And then Brian, gain thinking, saying, hey, look how far we've come. We're still relatively new in this industry and we have this big goal in 10 years that we want everybody to know us and us to be synonymous with the highest caliber of marketing possible in the auto repair industry. So check out that book, The Gap and the Gain, and there's a real life example of living in the gain versus living in the gap.